the final round of the Tata Steel Chess India 2022. Hikaru Nakamura is getting ready for the game and shake hands with Praggnanandhaa. The last time they played against each other in the final round was nearly 4 years ago when Pragg was a little kid. And this was how that game ended. King d7. And if king takes a8, king c7 is a stalemate. With this, the game would end in a draw. Pragg is confident. Hikaru is shaking his head. He was quite close to winning there. He takes on a8 because there was nothing much to do. Shake of hands. And that was a epic game. Let's start with this round. c4 by Hikaru, e5 and a3. A very little pawn move there. But in the spirit of the Sicilian, you can feel that it's reverse Sicilian on the board. Hikaru is not trying to play mainline theory. He just wants a game against Pragg. c6 on the board and knight f3. Now notice, if knight takes pawn, there is queen a5 check. So the pawn is actually defended. You can play bishop e7, but he goes bishop d6 and Hikaru instantly pins the knight with bishop to g5. Pragg pushes the pawn, bishop away, bishop h4, and now brings his bishop back. Maybe he just wants to push d5 and control the center there. And his bishop is well placed on c7, but instead of playing d5, he goes d6, e3, knight bd7 and d4. So in spite of wasting a tempo with d3, d4, Hikaru is happy with his position because he has more space here. Bishop e2. Pragg can go e4, but it will allow knight d2, putting pressure on the e4 point. And he's taking his time here because he can go g5, he can castle. There's also a very interesting plan of knight f8 to g6. Pragg does go knight f8. And then he can put his knight on g6. Queen to c2 played. And the knight jumps up to g6. Bishop g3. Now a lot of pressure on the e5 point here. Castles for black. It's a question whether Pragg wants to play e4 and d5, but it might not be in his benefit. He goes bishop d3. Is there any pawn push here? Not really, because it's controlled 3 times. And also the knight is attacked somehow. Bishop g4 looks like a powerful move here. But instead he plays knight f4. Wow, what a move. If you take pawn takes, I'll take back with the pawn, check, and you will lose the bishop. Wow, what a move. And if you take with the bishop, you've won the bishop pair. That's an excellent continuation. Hikaru goes back with his bishop. That's not great, but in this situation, it's an important one. Now, if knight h5 and trying to win the bishop, that looks very logical. Pragg down on time, he goes bishop g4 on the attack. That is very interesting and active play by the little boy. Maybe he just takes here. That could be an idea. Long castle by Hikaru. Wow, what a move here. And the point is, you can't play e4 so well because your knight is hanging. So Pragg actually takes on d4. Now if you take the knight, then you will take the knight on c3. So important now is to take on d4, and if you take with the pawn, then my knight on f4 is well placed. I can go knight to h5 here. He takes with the rook. Rook takes on d4, knight e6 back, rook d1. Well, for now, black is doing really well. Rook d8 with the knight coming to c5. Later on, angling for d5, the knight coming to e4. Pragg's position looking very active. He first goes knight c5, which is also fine. And one of the plans in the position is to play a5, a4. just fixing it. Black also has control of the e4 square. Bishop e2 played. Maybe d5 here is a nice move. Just breaking in the center, trying to open up the c file here. Who knows, it might be useful to play d5. But also possible is knight c e4 or knight f e4. Bishop h5 played by Pragg. A mistake. I can understand. He wants to play bg6 and attack the queen. But the knight can jump to h4 and Hikaru takes his chance. Bishop takes e2. Knight takes e2. And notice how this knight is now coming to f5. d6 is weak. Suddenly the bishop is passive. You have to be careful here as black. Pragg must think about g6, but then he must calculate knight takes g6. Instead he goes knight f e4 and Hikaru instantly plays king b1 a5. Now the problem here is that although black has very good pieces in the center, f3 will kick the knight away, and also knight f5 is a very strong and powerful knight. You can see the other knight joins him, and after f3, knight g3, hg3, h file opens up. The knight is very actively placed. g4, g5 would be on cards. e4 is a possibility. The bishop on c7 is quite passive. a4, he plays f3. Pragg takes the bishop, pawn takes, and already white has a huge advantage. It's unbelievable how things change so quickly. Pragg was doing quite well, but it's this knight on f5 which is an absolute beast. Rook a d8. Pragg is unable to sense the danger that are lying in this position for him. Now there's a big sacrifice lurking in the air. Can Hikaru find it? Knight h6 is the move. G h6, he brings his other knight and he takes it. Whoa! Hikaru Nakamura on fire. Takes here, brings his other knight. Now look at this, guys. Knight takes h6. Hanging, king moves up. You move back the knight. The rook is open on this file. The queen can come to h7. It is a massacre here. And even though Hikaru is a piece down here, he has a huge attack. d5 played by Pragg. But how is he going to meet knight takes h6 is unclear. He has to give up his material because after knight h6, Hikaru just making the final calculations. He knows that he's winning here. He takes on h6. If Pragg goes king up and he resigns. He resigns here. Hikaru Nakamura wins. What a big win for Hikaru there. And the point is that if you go king g7, I go knight f5 check, and you move your king back, there is knight e7 check, queen e7, and the queen moves in, and it's a checkmate.